totaled. What are you going to do if you are on the road doing van life in your minivan or camper van, cargo van, whatever you're using, and your vehicle gets totaled when you're far away from home? And this can happen not just because of an automobile accident. There's several other ways that you can lose your van or have your van totaled while you're on the road. So we're going to talk about those and some possible solutions right now. Now I'm throwing some pictures up here of someone who had an accident. This is someone in a forum that I talked to that had an accident recently. They just got in their van, was working on the conversion, and they were still close to home, thank goodness, when this happened. And of all things, they got hit by, I think they said, a maple syrup truck, run into their van and totaled it. So now they're having to find another van. They're having to deal with the things, the money that was already spent on beginning their conversion. These things happen. These things happen all the time. And of course, there's millions of people on the road in vans and RVs at any given time. And there's a 99.9% chance that this will never happen to you or I. But unfortunately, it does happen. It is one of the things you need to think about. And it is one of the things I had a plan for when I first started doing this, traveling long distances. Because the obvious one is you can be involved in some type of accident. You can end up doing something like hitting an animal. There are animals that can total your vehicle. There are people in the 4 or 5 years that I have done this that have lost their vehicles to arson. There was someone that lost a camper a few years back in a campground. I think it was maybe a national forest. I can't remember now. Maybe it was a state park. And the best guess was there was someone there with mental issues that was mad at a ranger, and these people left to do something else and left their camper, and this guy came and set their camper on fire and basically left. I don't know if he was ever even caught. But that didn't help because now their camper and their possessions is up in smoke. There have been people, since I've been doing this, several stories I know of where people had their RVs stolen. All their possessions and everything in there. One person even had their pets taken. Whether these vehicles were ever recovered or not, I don't know the outcome of some of these stories, but still yet, it's just one of those horrible things when it happens. With road treks and any of these older vans, whether it's a Dodge van, Chevy van, whatever, I know several of these things that have gone up in flames because they would have a fuel leak in the engine compartment. And from a fuel line that just went bad, began to leak, whatever, had a slow leak, enough heat, flame, catches on fire, all you can do is pull over and your van is going to go up in flames. If you have enough fire extinguishers and can get to it fast enough, you can possibly put the fire out while it's still in the engine compartment, but your vehicle is probably going to be totaled at that point. Worst case scenario, it gets out of control fast and everything you have goes up in flames while you're standing on the side of the road watching it burn. There are people with propane that has caused fires and explosions. There are people I know that were, one like the big white van I have, a guy was refilling it, the propane was on, he was filling gas and it went up. Another guy that was having propane refilled and something sparked and the thing went up. So there's all types of situations. Buffalo, elk, deer, if you're down here in my part of the world. I know people who have hit horses. I know some people who have hit cows that got loose and had their vehicles totaled. Even if it was a fairly new vehicle, they still, because of the damage that was done, the vehicles were totaled. So the question is basically this. What are you going to do? Do you have a plan if this happens? Now, when I started out in the minivan, which I still use a minivan some, but when I started out in the minivan and took my first long trips, cross-country trips, I had a basic plan, and my plan was that if I had a major mechanical problem or a worst case scenario, my van was hit and totaled, that I would simply buy another minivan. Because most modern minivans, meaning everything made the last 20 years or so, have the same basic interior dimensions: width, height, length. So it would be easy to just take the stuff out of one vehicle, put it into another vehicle, and continue on down the road. So that's a great plan with an inexpensive vehicle, and it works for minivans. If you have a newer vehicle and you still owe money on and are making payments, especially, you're going to get into a slightly different ball game that we'll talk about in a moment. If you're into cargo vans, conversion vans, that sort of thing, it's not as easy because they don't all have the same dimensions. So unless you can find exactly what you had, brand, model, everything, it's going to be hard to do this. And if you have done a full build that involved tearing out walls and ceilings and floors and carpets and bolting custom cabinets to the wall and all of this kind of stuff, now you have the time, need for tools, all of this thing. Even if you find another vehicle, you're going to have time wherever you're stranded at, which may not be a real hopping area. You could be in a real rural area that's going to cause you even more problems. And you're going to be dealing with hotel bills potentially and all of that stuff while you're trying to get this done. In the case of my larger van, that road trek, the odds that I'm going to be somewhere that I can find a road trek anywhere near me that has roughly the same type of mileage and the same general year is going to be rare, because there just aren't as many of those vehicles out there. So it's not only now finding one that's comparable, it's a matter of finding one that condition-wise and mechanically is going to be good enough or as good as the one that I have now. So with these things happening on the road, it just creates a whole other set of problems. I know people who have had vehicles totaled and they owed more on the vehicle than what the insurance company payoff was. That creates problems. You have to remember, adjusters aren't there for you. Insurance adjusters work for the insurance company, and they are basically bonused out on the amount of money they can save the insurance company. So that's their primary objective. It's not necessarily being fair to you. So if you're going to get anywhere near a fair shake, if you're in this situation, and if you've never been through this, consider yourself lucky, because for those of us that have, we know this is usually the way it goes. It's going to take multiple conversations over multiple days to get a settlement from the insurance company, even if the accident wasn't your fault. Now, if the person that hits you has the same insurance company, it's a little bit easier. But if it's a different insurance company, now your insurance company's having to deal with their insurance company. Everybody's trying to cut corners and save money. And it takes time that you're going to be sitting somewhere with nothing to drive. Time that you're going to be stranded working these issues out. And in a worst case scenario, if you don't like the deal you have, the deal that they're giving you, and you're talking about having to go to arbitration, this is something that may happen a month or two later. So you're going to have to be able to pull the money from somewhere in order to buy you another vehicle to continue on. Or depending on how far away you are, you may have to fly home. You may have to get on a Greyhound bus and come home. You may need to rent a vehicle and come back to whatever your home base is. And while we're talking about problems, that assumes that you actually have a home base to come back to. The time may come that I am on the road full time, but I've seen people that have lost their vehicles who are full time. And this becomes a whole other set of problems. If you now no longer have a home base and all of your possessions are in your van, you really are do have a full-time house on wheels. And there was a young couple I know out in the Los Angeles area a while back. They did exactly that. They downsized because of rent. They got rid of everything they had. They did a van. They customized it what they could, and they started doing the stealth camping thing around the city in their van. And they had only been at this about a week or week and a half. Now they're parked on a quiet residential street, an area where they should be safe and felt safe, and a drunk driver came down that street and slammed into the back of their van while they were sleeping. Luckily, they didn't get hurt physically, but their van was totaled. Possessions, all these things, now they were basically forced into a situation where their van life dream turned into instant homelessness. And to make it worse, I believe their situation, if memory serves, I believe they didn't have full coverage insurance on their van. So now it's a fight with the insurance company of the people that hit them. And there's a lot of these stories, unfortunately, that have come up that I don't know what the final answer was to. And the fact that these people never come back into groups and forums and gave a final answer leads me to believe that it probably was a really, really unhappy ending. So we all need plans just in case this happens. And the further we are from our home, our general area, the more we need to think about this. When you're 1,000 miles or more potentially away, what are you going to do? How are you going to handle it? Do you have an emergency fund? Do you have that money that you're going to need either saved up or access to a credit card or something at worst to where you have access to some money? Because you're not going to be anywhere where you have help. And you may not have a quick resolution from your insurance company, sadly. But I want to hear your stories down in the comment section, and I want to hear your opinions more than anything else, so we can all kind of share this, because I bet I can get some good ideas from you guys and gals too. How are you going to handle this situation if it happens to you? What kind of vehicle do you have? Do you have a basic minivan? Are you using a van with a very simple build? Have you done a full build where you have everything taken apart and customized? Do you have some type of little RV that you're using? And if you don't have a van yet, you still need to be thinking about, when that time comes, if I do this and start these van life adventures, how am I going to handle this situation if it comes up, if it happens? So let's all share some ideas, and we'll talk soon.